What's going on, everybody? It's Mike Norris. I'm here today with Ben Goodey. What's going on, Ben?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Ben is actually in the UK right now, so it's a little bit later by you, right? It's like 6 p.m. or so?
Yeah, it's 5 p.m. and it's getting dark already.
That's how it is here too, man. Well, I live in Illinois, and I don't know, it's gloomy these days, but it is what it is, right?
It's turned quickly here. It's raining every day, and this summer was short, especially with coronavirus and stuff. It's just being very short.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So right now I work for a really cool company called Sentisum. And we do AI customer feedback analytics essentially. So I started that actually like mid coronavirus, like it's been 5 months now or something. Before that I was leading the marketing at a healthcare startup, which was actually, I was leading the marketing, but it was my first kind of like role dedicated to marketing. Before that I was doing some kind of like startup analytics stuff. It was kind of like a VC model, that kind of thing. But I left that because I was like, I need to work in the startup area. Like this is where the best opportunities are, and it's the most fun as well. And marketing's just been something that's always been really interesting to me. So I've always like kept up with what's going on and like been involved with that and learning about it. So.
Perfect. Well, so you've obviously got a pretty robust marketing background, then, having seen it from a few different perspectives, but I do want to talk to you, at least to start, about the podcast, because to me that's one of the most interesting things, and I think it's a great channel these days for people to produce content without having to sit down and write something. And I mean, I say that because traditionally speaking, it was when you first, everyone heard about the HubSpot model and inbound marketing. Everyone's sitting out there and they're pumping out blog posts, like five reasons for this, 5 reasons for that, the ultimate guide to this. And obviously times have changed. So I think you've probably got a pretty good perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. So I've launched 2 podcasts now. And I started off in just like February, March this year doing my own podcast. And that was really aimed at, like, at the beginning, like, okay, I want to talk to lots of marketers. I want to do something. I want to start a side kind of hustle type thing. And it's just like that just opened the door to like the opportunity of what is podcasting. And like, I've always listened to podcasts. I always thought it was great. I always thought there was a bit of a gap in the marketing kind of area of podcasting. There is a lot of marketing podcasts, but I think for me, there just wasn't enough like granularity. There wasn't enough detail in the way that people were doing like marketing podcasts. I wanted to do it. I wanted to interview people who had great stories and really get them to share their details. And for me, like, it's been amazing because I've done 21 podcasts on the How the Fuck podcast now. And it's just been like having 23 have recorded now, one-to-one consultations with marketers who have just basically got to train me on marketing, which has been actually amazing. And then when I moved to Sentisum, it was like, okay, this is actually a huge opportunity on the B2B marketing side as well. Everyone is slowly starting to start their own podcast, and I was like, we've got to do it. It's just a great way to get brand recognition and talk to our prospects and know and get to know the market even better.
Yeah. Was that your mindset when you first created a podcast, or was it something else?
It was I think I've done like different blogs in the past, and I was like, okay, I want to start a marketing blog because this is an area that I need to like upskill myself in. And then I was just recording the conversations, and in the end I was like, why don't I just do this? I think I had some hesitation about getting on there. Like, I didn't want to, I don't know, there was some kind of barrier to going from writing to recording. But as soon as I just got over that, it became like this just great source of knowledge for me. But that was originally it. It was like about how could I build my own knowledge, and then it just became the just an awesome way to add value to the marketing community and build like a personal brand. But then starting at Centisum, the podcast was a different track. Definitely, it wasn't just about like building my personal brand. It was about how can we create a content engine, essentially. Like the podcast itself, like it takes an hour to record. We spend probably like a day editing and everything, but it spins out into blog posts, into all our social media content, all of that kind of stuff. So it's an easy way to make a lot of content in a very small amount of time. And because I was the first marketer at Centisum, it was like, okay, we need to accelerate our content right now. We need to learn what works, what doesn't. And it's worked. So that was the mindset of that. I think the other really good thing about having a podcast on the B2B side, it's not just about creating endless amounts of content. It's a great way to actually build a relationship. I think, like, you do a podcast, it's like you create within like an hour of chatting to someone such a strong, like a unusually strong sort of relationship with someone.
Yeah,
I think it's quite like I don't know, I find it quite like an intimate space to like have a conversation with someone. So forever that person feels like they're in my network. And that's especially good on the B2B side if you're building relationships. Like if you can get your prospective customers on the podcast, talk about all their problems, show them what you're about, show them your production value, and build your credibility. Like it's working out really well for us, for sure.
I agree, man. All the people that I've had on here, I at least keep in touch with them somehow. It's different for each person, but there are different ways. Like, maybe I'll comment on their LinkedIn posts, or we message each other on LinkedIn, or we'll email some stuff. But no matter what, it's definitely, we've established some kind of connection that we would not have had otherwise. And that is part of the beauty of doing something like this is, like you said, you develop those relationships that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think the hesitation sometimes going into podcasts for brands that haven't done it is, I think there are a few things. I think number one, people think nobody listens to podcasts still, which is just wrong. Or maybe it's the opposite. I think sometimes people think, maybe my niche is too saturated already and I missed the boat, which again, I think is wrong. I still think it's in a pretty sweet spot there. But I also think they don't think they're going to get the viewership numbers. And I think those kind of come based on the guests you have. But even if they don't, you're creating those connections at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's one step from like someone liking your LinkedIn post to you actually getting on a call with them and having a chat. And what a great excuse to talk to someone you really want to talk to, and then having a podcast to do it with. Most people will ignore if you say like, hey, can I just have a chat to talk about the market because I'm trying to learn?
Yeah.
Like, no way. But if you say, I'm going to promote you, I'm going to do a podcast. And I don't think about, like, really very few people say no, actually, to going on a podcast. So you can even be quite selective, but yeah.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do you get asked to be on a lot of podcasts? Have you done interviews like this otherwise to grow yours?
I haven't. I mean, I've done one other one, but not really. Not. I think. No, I haven't. To be honest, that's the answer. And I think some people, like as you grow your influence, will just get asked on endless podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Like I talked to Rand Fishkin, and he's like, I get asked all the time, and he's doing like 3 a day, and that's because he has this profile. So yeah, I think maybe it's people also that I've talked to seem to be going on like a round of, like, they go on one, then they get invited to another one because they're a good guest, and then they end up going on like a road show. So, maybe we'll see after this.
Well, that's what I was kind of getting at. I mean, I didn't mean to call you out or anything, but I was watching, it was like a webinar yesterday on B2B podcasts, and there was a slide in there about Rand Fishkin, and he did a survey of his current SparkToro clients, and a majority of them said that they heard of him through his podcast appearances. And so that's pretty much all he does. I mean, he tries to get on as many shows as possible because he knows that's how he's attracting people to the platform. And that was kind of where I was going with it, is I had that in the back of my mind. And it's funny you mentioned Rand too. We both interviewed him now. So He's a cool
Yeah.
guy. But I think that's a great strategy for growing a following, and it's something I truthfully need to get out there a little bit more and be on other people's shows too, because I haven't done a ton either, and I want to, grow this audience, but at the same time tap into other people's audiences as well. And if I know that they're doing marketing shows and there's someone in my niche, I want to be on that.
That was when I first started doing the podcast, I was like, how big of a person can I get to? For, like, as early on at the beginning, I thought, okay, no one's going to say yes. Then I started realizing everyone's saying yes.
Yeah.
And then I think like the first one I got was April Dunford. She has a huge following. And then Chris Walker. And these people, it's no brainer, right, to tap into these people who have huge amounts of influences. And I think I got so many people. I think Chris just liked one of my posts and I got tons of followers on tons of listens on his one because of that. It's a good, I think, tip. Like, there's a reason, like on the podcast that I always do like an illustration, and there's a few different reasons for that, but like one of them is, like, for example, with Fxck, I said to him, like, my aim of part of interviewing him was that it'd be a great interview, but the other bit was that I know I could tap into his audience. And I was like, I know that he shares only the podcasts he thinks are a bit special. So how can I make this a bit special? And doing like taking a lot of time to do like an illustration of him, like a portrait of him for his profile, that kind of thing. And I sent it to him and he was like, yeah, definitely, I'm going to share this,
Yeah.
And his podcast is now one of like the most, within like a week, he shared it. It got like 200 likes on his LinkedIn. And it's now one of the most listened to shows on my podcast. And I think going that extra mile for the guest is actually, it kind of builds the relationship in a way and makes them want to help you back and share your stuff.
I agree with that. Those illustrations you do are really cool too. I think I saw one with Rand without a mustache and then one with.
Yeah. That's so me. I think I just posted the wrong one. I didn't even realize I posted the wrong one. I don't know even why I had one without a mustache. I
thought it was funny. I thought you did it on purpose.
No, I didn't. Yeah. I must have pressed hide for just the mustache, and then I converted it to a picture and posted it. But then lots of people commenting like, he looks so weird without his mustache. Like,
views, you catch people's attention. They're like, wait a minute, I don't know.
Yeah, conversation starter.
It's cool though that you go and be above and beyond like that, because that's something, I don't think he shared my video interview with him to the same extent he did yours. Maybe it was because it sucked, but maybe it was also because I didn't draw him up. I could have probably done some more on that. So it's a good lesson for me.
Yeah, that is what I've found. And the guests, I had another guest recently on the Centerson podcast just reached out and say, the page you've made is so good. Like, I'm starting a podcast. What are the benefits you see of this? Should I do this? Like that kind of thing. So you get lots of good feedback from it, which is nice. I think it's just like any kind of branding. Like, if you can be a bit different and stand out in some way, then people take more notice. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think it's hard to stand out too, because there are a lot of shows popping up now. Like everyone's kind of getting into podcasting, and it's only going to become more and more congested. So you got to do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and I think if my advice, if you were starting your own like personal podcast, like what I did with like How the Fuck, it was just like, it was really for me. There was no brand attached to it that's making money. Would be, because it is quite hard to like stand out and like cut through that noise. Like, make sure that you actually enjoy what you're doing and do it. You can make sure you're learning or you get something out of it, because then it doesn't matter if you don't get many listens or whatever. But yeah, I think I think especially if like we have a big strategy internally now about like building our LinkedIn profile, like as a company. And just having a podcast means we have something fresh to post. I think it gets a bit boring when people are just posting the same. There's some big influencers out there just posting the same stuff over and over and over again. And like I get maybe they're trying to put their consistent message out, whatever, but I definitely prefer the ones who have fresh content. And if you have a podcast, you always have fresh content. So
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I did that the other day. Is I reposted something that I had posted previously that I knew did well, and my thought process behind it. For one, I was feeling uninspired that day, and I tried to post something every business day. But also, I look at these other people who do that, and I wonder if it's partially because they know what their best material is, and they
yeah,
know sometimes they might be falling off and they want to catch that new group of people who haven't been with them the whole time, with some of their best material. And I understand that. But to your point, if you've been following someone for a while and you've heard it before, it just becomes
yeah,
repetitive after a while.
yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, don't get me wrong, some of the biggest like influential people on LinkedIn are reposting the same message over and over again in lots of different ways. And
Mm.
we all, I think what they do get loads of likes, and I'm like, I've seen that before, but yeah, like they clearly are people who are still like, oh, I'm still taking in that
Yeah,
message. But
true.
we post it. We always post internally in the Slack channels. Like, did you see this post? And even though it's not said publicly in LinkedIn, like for sure people could be saying it privately. Oh, he said the same thing 20 times in the last 6 months. It's getting a bit annoying because when you first see it, it's like, wow, that's such a strong message. But you got to think about your loyal customers as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and the majority of people aren't going to be new people after a while. They're going to be returning people who've seen your stuff before. Like when you develop an audience, it's primarily people who know you, who've been with you.
Yeah. I think that, and it works if you have a message you really want to push. Like I know Chris Walker has a few clear messages that I think the more he says it, the more it hits home, and everyone is listening to what he's saying now.
Mm.
And he needs to keep repeating it, I think, because otherwise people won't change. Can't be one post. So
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, any good message is worth delivering more than once. I am
yeah,
I am curious though about the Chris Walker interview. How was that?
it was good. I think I think if I could go back, it was really interesting. I mean, it's similar to the stuff he says about you should have ungated content and just like the various things that he says. But I think it was probably my like second or third interview, and I had no experience with it. I think now I could probably give him a better interview,
Sure.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But he really like I think interviewing him meant I then had an easy way into Gaetano. I don't know if you know him. He's like he hosts um, the Demand Gen live podcast with Chris Walker.
Oh, okay.
They're like
Got it.
yeah, so they're both just like separate, but they know each other. And then I've also interviewed other people, and they all know each other like actually really well. I guess I don't know how I've just tapped into this market in the US somewhere where they all know each other. I'm just like ticking off the list, but they all have learned from each other and have really like good things to say. But
That's
yeah, it
great.
was
How
cool.
how did you? So Chris was your second ever guest. How did you go about bringing people in the beginning?
Um, Honestly, I just messaged them on LinkedIn. That is a question that I get asked a lot. Like, how are you getting that guest, or how did you get these guests on? The answer is always the same. Like, I just messaged them on LinkedIn. Um, I would just approach them very nicely. I add them like, hey, I would love to interview you. This is what the podcast's about. Um, and as it grew, like I've previously interviewed this person, this person, this person, add a bit of credibility. Um, but yeah, I think that the first the first one I actually released was April Dunford, and I'd been talking to her because I read her book on positioning, which was just awesome. In the last startup I worked for, it just really helped us. And then um, yeah, I was already messaging her, and I said we were talking by email, and I just said like, do you want to take a punt on a new podcast? She was like, yeah, I'll be interested in that.
Oh,
And that podcast, and I just said to her like, can you tell me a story that you've never told before? And it ended up being this positioning exercise, the company that went on to make $1 billion in revenue afterwards. And like that story, that someone, not me, but someone posted that on Hacker News, and it got like 30,000 views overnight, something like that.
wow.
The blog post, like we talked about it before, but like you going viral, it was like completely unexpected. Like this,
Oh yeah.
I looked I was in the first couple of weeks, I was just like checking Google Analytics like obsessively anyway. And then just before I went to bed, I checked and it was like 5,000 views in the last hour. I was like, holy shit. I've never been able to replicate that, but some people just were attracted to that 1 billion story, clearly.
Yeah, man, if I had a story like that, I don't know that I'd just be sitting on that one, but I guess when you got a lot
Yeah.
of good stories, it's just put it in
She'd
your
never,
memory.
she'd never said it before as well. I said, can you tell me one that, yeah,
That's
it
awesome.
was good to get.
So how did you figure out what you were going to speak on in terms of the overall brand of the podcast and where you wanted, what direction you wanted to take? I know, so like for people who don't know, you really dig it and you try to get in the weeds as to something very successful that someone has worked on. Am I explaining that well?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Tried to make it as actionable as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how did I how did I think of that first? I came across a blog post by by a guy called Will, who is the head of brand at a startup here in London, and he'd written this blog post in detail about an advertising campaign that he ran while at his startup. Um, and he went into detail about the budget and I was like, this is just the most useful article I've like ever read. It like taught me so much about branding, all of that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, like this, I want to like replicate that as a blog. And as I said, it was going to be a blog at the beginning, just content. I was going to interview people, get their details. And that's how it started then. And I think I think all of it's been like, I've almost been my audience every time. So I knew what I wanted to know. And I could always just ask, like, as I'm learning marketing, I'm sure other people who are learning marketing want to know these things. So I'm going to ask the details. And that's how it was born. And then I think I was just sitting with my cousin and just came up with the name How the Fuck. Um, I thought maybe that would be, I was like a bit scared about calling it that at the beginning, but that was the thing that every single person comments on, saying, I love the
Oh
name.
yeah,
So
I
it
think I
was,
did initially too. I was like, man, I like that. It's a good brand.
yeah. And it was like, I don't think I can take much credit for it. Just like, it just came out of nowhere and it just happened to fit exactly what it was about. And it stands out and we just went for it.
That's perfect. I was just gonna ask you something. Oh, that blog post that you read, do you still have that laying around? You should shoot that my way.
Yeah. Well, he was the first person I interviewed.
Great. Okay.
I talked to him and I was like, can we go even further? Let's get like the most up-to-date information and dig into the details a bit. And that one's written. So you can see it's the very first blog post on thefxck.com and it's all written. It's good.
Oh, perfect. I'll check that out.
It's mostly written by him, but I've sort of repurposed it and we've added the results of the campaign because it was just like how I did the campaign. Now it's with the addition of what the results were. Yeah, but it wasn't a recorded one, but it was all written down.
Oh, that's great. So how well do you do anything to market the podcast yourself, or does it just kind of grow organically based on what it is that you're doing?
Definitely. Yeah, I think the distribution side is really important, actually. At the beginning, the first load of followers came from Reddit, Reddit R marketing. Um, I would basically, the Reddit community is very harsh on not letting you advertise.
Oh, I
But
know. Yeah.
so any suspicion of advertising there, they just downvote and nothing happens, no views. But I just like the Chris Walker one, for example, I just bullet pointed the most important points and put it on there. And that was the initial like few thousand kind of views that I got on the website that converted into subscribers. And it sort of just like rolled from there. And it wasn't until like probably a couple months after where I was like, I realized maybe I should actually, I think part of me was like cringing at the idea of building like a LinkedIn following. Or like trying to like grow an audience that way, but having podcasts at least was like a reason to do that. And so I just started posting on there, and like slowly that's built up as well. It's been like a really good channel to release them to. So now that's really good. I think if I had more time to spend on it, I would do a lot of other stuff. Like at Senti Serma, our podcast is distributed much more effectively. because I have I'm paid to do it rather than doing it in my free time on the weekends. But yeah, now the main distribution is through the audience of the guest. To be honest, that's how I get the channels. I have tried recently to do a few on Reddit, and they've just bombed as well. It's still hard, but they've kind of stopped me posting links. I think they've kind of cottoned on to the strategy a little bit.
Did you do? Because I've run into this as well on Reddit. I think I told you that. I mean, we've talked about this, but I've run into that as well. Where when I position something correctly and I kind of say like, hey, this is helpful. It's why I'm putting it here. Full disclosure though, this is mine. Whatever. I've gotten away with it sometimes, but other times I just get, like you said. I mean, I get downvoted to hell, and it's just over.
I think I can tell when it's going to work and when it's going to not work. And if within the first hour it hasn't got like 5 upvotes, it's dead. Like, it's not going to happen. But then it's super exciting when you get you see there's 8 upvotes, and then within a day it's 200, and that's enough to send you thousands of views.
Yeah,
it was so great for me at the beginning to build the initial audience, for sure. And to realize that I'm not going to say this to nobody, release it to no one.
Absolutely.
That was the worry at the beginning.
So do you send people to your website, or do you send them to iTunes podcast app? I mean, what kind of, where's the landing spot?
Yeah, it's the website, definitely.
Okay.
I mainly did that because I was also writing a sort of summary of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if you want to read the full summary, go here. But also it was a way to collect emails and build that audience. I think I saw at the time back then a Dave Gerhardt post that was you need to be building your audience. You need to the power in an email list over compounding over years of growing it is very monetizable at some point. So I was like, okay, well, I may as well do it, even if I'm not necessarily planning to make money from it at some point. So what was I talking about? What was the subject of that question?
You hosted on your website, basically.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I hosted on the website, but I also I interviewed Lindsay Chepkamer, who is the founder of Casted, a podcasting kind of software. And she was telling me you should always try to own that experience, own the first experience. When you say, do you have a podcast? You say, yeah, go here. And then instead of Apple owning how you present yourself, you have it on the podcast. And then I think that's quite true. Actually, it's quite a nice way. You should host it on your website, I think.
No, I agree.
There's some benefits to it.
So what, do you use a podcast hosting platform? And if so, which one? And then do you then distribute it out to, I'm assuming you're on iTunes and all that. I've seen you on iTunes. I know you're on
iTunes. I use Anchor, which I think is owned by Spotify. And you put it on there and then they distribute it to everyone automatically.
Oh, that's great.
Awesome. Yeah. So I just put it on there. Now I'm on every podcast platform. It's that's definitely the way to go, I think.
And are you seeing, let me know if I'm digging too deep here, but are you seeing pretty steady followership growth? I don't know if you want to talk about numbers, but percentages maybe just over time.
I haven't actually looked at percentage growth, but it's definitely, I shared it on my LinkedIn, the sort of chart of it going up this week or last week. No, actually on the weekend. My weekend post is just a picture of the graph of the increase over time. And it's been steady going up, and obviously there's these huge spikes when someone like Gaetano shared it, or Chris Walker or Rand Fishkin shared it, or when it went viral with April Dunford, shoots up and then comes back down. But with the email list, it grew quite quickly to 500 people. Okay, that's very specific. And then it just sort of petered out for a while. People just stopped. I think that's because I stopped going through Reddit and sending people to my homepage. It just sort of stayed at 500 for a long time. And then I shared the link, and Rand shared the link, and it shot up again. So it's like 650 people email subscribers.
That's great, man. I'd rather have an audience of 650 people who are all organic and who are really engaged than, you know, a list that's 10 times that size of people who just, you know, don't really care.
And I hope so. I hope that's the right way. It's hard to know who to compare it to or what to compare it to, really.
I agree. Yeah.
So I don't know. I hope it's not too, I think that's pretty good for like this area, like this length of time, and hopefully it will just grow over time, and that compounds. But I do want to make the newsletter more interesting, because for a while I've been like playing with it. Should it just be a new podcast released, or should it be more curated marketing content that people actually want to follow rather than just get notified? Because I don't know how many people are subscribing on Apple or Spotify or wherever. Sure. They don't give us those numbers, which is quite annoying.
Yeah, that's not great. You know what's funny though? I mean, our viewership and email list and everything is like right about exactly the same as yours in terms of growth and stuff. But you started after me, so you got a leg up. But I'm coming for you. But no, I've wrestled with some of the same things. Like how do we structure the emails that go out? One of the things we started doing recently was putting timestamps in, and obviously like we've got video too, so it's a little bit different. And thankfully I've got a team who helps me with this as well. But started putting timestamps into individual spots in the video where, you know, we touch on topics that I think people might be interested in. We write like a little synopsis and everything, put an image of, you know, your beautiful face on there. And that's kind of what we've gone with recently. And I mean, we see some pretty good, I think our open rates are like 40% or so. And then click rates are, you know, that they bounce around. But overall, I think that's a pretty good formula for us at least.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I think because now I'm like working full time, I wish I could have more time to do. There's so many things I feel like I could do if I wasn't like, it wasn't something I have to rush on the weekends. But like video, like you do, so you do a lot of video, right? You do the YouTube and stuff. I don't do any of that just because it's like an extra chunk of editing or.
Yeah, it's more time.
Yeah, but I think that would be really good. And also like for the Sentisum, at least we cut the best clips from every podcast and we post them on social media every day. Perfect. On LinkedIn. And I think that's a good way of doing it, but I definitely didn't have time to maintain, like we have an Instagram and a LinkedIn for how the fuck, but you can see where I was doing it at the beginning, I had loads of like time and motivation, and then suddenly it's just no posts.
I get it with side projects like that. Our VP of marketing, before we hired him initially, he had his own website where he would do reviews of tech products. And he originally started doing it just because he wanted to get stuff for free in the mail. And so and it worked. I mean, his basement is just stocked with like anything you need, any type of charger or like, you know, really? Thing that I needed. Like if I needed an adapter for something obscure, he's got it in his basement. But he kind of stopped doing it once he started working here because he just got busy, and he had some interns who were doing stuff for him for a while, but it's just not the same quality, you know. Like yourself, you have that vision, you have that drive to like really do it well, and then interns, they're doing it for the experience or, you know, a little bit of money maybe, but nothing too crazy.
I did talking about that kind of like outsource. It's not outsourcing, but like interns. Like I did at one point try to outsource the illustrations that with people, and I found someone on Fiverr, and it cost like a £5 to do it, and they just weren't that good. Every week my girlfriend would just like take the piss out of me, like constantly just saying like, you've made these people look awful, it's so embarrassing for them, and so in the end I was like, okay, I have to do it. I can't just keep releasing these. You can see those. There's a slight change in style as you scroll down.
Oh, that's funny. I'll check that out. You're a good artist though, man. I could never do that. I could barely draw like a house or a stick person. I can't do it.
Thank you. I only picked up, it's probably 2 years ago that I downloaded Adobe Illustrator for the first time, and I couldn't do anything. And I wanted to learn, so I've just picked it up, and these are always a fun way of doing things.
That's how it goes, man. I think relating that back to podcasting, I think people are afraid to put themselves in front of a mic and just talk. They're afraid they're going to say something stupid or take a stance on something they don't mean to or something like that. Or they're just going to, you know, suck. I might have said that already. Maybe I suck, but no, I think they're just scared, and you just have to get over the hump and realize that you're not gonna be great the first time you do it. Like you said, you wish you could interview people again. Me too. Same boat. I was not good when I first started at all, but I'm getting better, and I know there's people who are better than me. Like Joe Rogan crushes me. He's great, and all kinds of other people in the B2B space too. But you just got to keep doing it, plugging away, and you learn from the guests you have. That's how everything grows. It's fun to do too, and I think it's worth it for pretty much everyone in every niche, as long as you like it. Like you said, you have to have that passion for it. If you don't have the passion for it, just stay away. But otherwise, I think it's great.
You may as well, like, there is nothing to lose as long as you're learning from it and you're getting in just something you're interested in. So, and yeah, I think the biggest fear is like looking a bit stupid, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's worse being this side of it, because I can edit when I'm the interviewer. I can edit everything, and I do edit. I do. I edit all the ums and ahs, and I re-record my questions, which were just loads of 10-minute long of me asking a question because I couldn't formulate it properly. So much of that. So I think when I used to listen to podcasts, I used to think they all sound so slick. I used to just think, oh, that's just Americans, that they can just speak like that about anything. But for sure, it's the editing.
It's not Americans, I'll tell you that. We feel the same about you guys. This one's raw and unrehearsed, though, man. This is it. This is the final cut. So anything you say here can and will be used against you.
Oh God. That does save time. And as I've got better at it, I've edited less and less because I've not needed to as much. And I've now got this microphone, which I'm not using now because I just bought this like awesome microphone thing. But it's so good, but I didn't realize I needed some kind of audio interface, which I don't have. So I have to order that as well. So, but the next podcast I do, hopefully I'll be really crisp and everything.
I've noticed too. So I've been doing video forever, but I haven't really done like a podcast. Like I haven't really uploaded the audio anywhere, and I've just got started doing that. And I downloaded like an MP3 off a YouTube video, and I went to post it, and I was like, oh man, that was rough. So I figured out, if you download the WAV file or .wav, I don't even know what you call them. I downloaded that, and that sounds way better. So I'm going with that from now on. But yeah, I've realized that a mic is needed for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one in my Mac is actually surprisingly good, I think, but I'm sure you go to that next level. One of my friends told me, your mic is popping or cracking or something. So
yeah. I got some audio snaps on my end too, who are like, man, you got something happening with something. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. I can't hear it, but if you can hear it, I should fix it. So
yeah. I love getting the feedback from my friends that like some of them have said like, I'm so surprised how professional it sounds, or or when they're trying to give you some constructive feedback and they're like, carefully, like volume was like really different on when you spoke.
Hey, that's good friends though. You need people like that. Otherwise you don't know. And you're just walking around looking like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. And you need people to rate your podcast on Apple.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm going to need that in a bit. So anything on Centisum you want to touch on? What do you guys do?
Ooh, my pitch. It's so interesting what we do. Like we have this, just the technical team is so amazing, and just the AI NLP engineers who they're just so smart. But yeah, we're building this platform that essentially you can take any kind of customer feedback data, so like support ticket conversations, emails, that kind of thing, like when you're complaining to Uber Eats or whatever it is, and then and also combining it with the NPS survey data and like CSAT surveys, customer reviews left on Trustpilot, that kind of thing. And the NLP will automatically tag all the topics within those conversations and the sentiment of them, and like when you have hundreds of thousands of conversations, it brings them all together and it tells you, okay, this is why your customers are complaining.
Wow.
This is how you can reduce your contacts. This is how you make better experiences. This is what people care about. This is what people hate about your brand. This is why people are bitching about you online, whatever it is. So we're making just a really like simple platform, and there's a few others out there, but honestly, it's there. We'd blow them out of the water, and that's not just me being biased. I think it's our prospects also saying that. So it's really interesting, and this is like our kind of growth year. Like we've built out the product and are building it still, like it's improving like every week, but we hired me on the marketing side, we hired 2 salespeople, and now we are like, this is the year where we actually go to market kind of thing. So it's really like an exciting year for us. And we've got a few big clients, a few big like logos and names. The credibility is there. So it's just like on us to make noise and sell. So it's a fun year to be part of it.
That's awesome, man. I can imagine. I mean, there are just so many little nooks and crannies of the web out there today too, that to be able to monitor, Trustpilot and Facebook and Google and Yelp, and I don't even know what else you guys pull. I don't even know if you pull all those, but just that by itself. I mean, like I'm not a big, we're an agency, we got like 60 people. Even for us to do that would be a lot. And we're not, some kind of enterprise level business by any means. So I can imagine having that type of insight and getting that feedback and then being able to act on it right away. That's invaluable.
I think the biggest part of it does exist out there, that there is like survey analytics or review analytics. But the biggest part of the puzzle is the support conversations, really. Like when you have like 100,000, the difference between you've been sent surveys before where they're like, can you provide us feedback on your service today? And the people who reply is like 1%. And those 1% are probably biased. Like there's a reason they reply and not the others. Either they really happy or really unhappy, or just like a particular type of person. But support tickets are like just unfettered feedback. Like they are like, there's no bias there because you're just trying to get your problem solved. So you can say what has actually annoyed you. And the customer support people at the moment have like quite a horrible, well, a hard task of getting that information back to the product team. And they say like, we're getting customers every day complaining because their PayPal payment is not working properly. And if the product team can directly get all of these different bits of information about why customers are complaining, then we think anyway, like companies can become way more customer centric, like actually focused on helping their customers and not missing the boat, I guess.
That makes sense. It's a lot easier to look at aggregated data than it is trying to piece all kinds of individual things together. I would almost say it's almost like the equivalent of, having a form on a site and having it all be open where people can write whatever they want versus having drop down fields that you can then go back and search for later and find that aggregated information.
Yeah. But people, when you have this other field where people can write what they want, that's really interesting, more rich insight. Right. But when you have 1 million of those, who's going to read it? It's too hard. It's too much effort.
No chance.
You want to quantify the qualitative, basically. And
cool. Yeah. We should talk more about that offline. I'm interested in what you guys are doing.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I can show you around. Look at our website. We've just been building the website, so it's all kind of new and changing every day. You probably find a spelling mistake, but
I'll be on the lookout. Well, cool, Ben. I appreciate your time today. I've kept you for a little while now, so I'll let you go. But if anyone wants to get a hold of you or learn about the podcast, where should they go?
I think talk to me on LinkedIn. I actually do reply to most people if anyone like reaches out to me, and as long as you're not selling something to me, I will accept that request every time. So yeah, I think find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. All
right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. And yeah, I'd love to see you back sometime. Maybe a couple of years from now when we've got massive audiences, let's reconvene.
Look back at this conversation then.
Yeah. Just, infants to the stage. All right. Thanks, man. Bye, everybody.